Remember when we made a video talking about how sailing integrates with over 12 skills in old school RuneScape? Well, one skill that was missing from that list was Slayer. But now we have new information as to how sailing will integrate with Slayer on release. So let's dive into those changes, what new creatures are coming, what drops we can expect, and some important notes to consider ahead of the release of sailing. The first creature to talk about are the Gryphons. These will require 51 Slayer to be able to do, as well as 45 sailing to be able to access the island. So all these creatures will have a sailing requirement, but it's not tied specifically to them, it's tied to being able to dock on the island. So just keep that in mind when I'm mentioning that throughout the video. They have an interesting weight mechanic where you need to weigh a certain amount so they don't knock you back with their feathers and take unavoidable damage. I doubt this is going to be too hard to achieve. There's a lot of heavy items you can bring with you to reach that limit. We'll find out on release. They can be assigned by both Vanica and Chalder by default, and you can unlock them for both Neve and Duradel as well if you'd like to. Overall, I think they're going to be decent experience because they're both in multi and cannonable, so there's a lot of ways to take out a lot of them very quickly. So I think it's going to be a staple for mid-game Slayer for sure. Plus they have a superior, which again is going to help for a little bit of extra XP, and you could get lucky and get something like an imbued heart. Granted though, the odds are going to be fairly low because they're only 51 Slayer. In terms of unique drops, they have two. First thing is the Gryphon feathers, which I suspect you'll get every single time, just a few of them. And these Gryphon feathers are used to charge the Horn of Plenty. This is an offhand hunter tool that you charge with the feathers, and it provides a +4 invisible boost to your hunter. Keep in mind, this isn't going to allow you to catch something you don't have the level for. It'll just give you an invisible boost that is generally going to raise your catch chance against every type of monster that has a catch chance, like chins and salamanders. In addition, you can toggle on an effect that gives you a 10% chance to do a double catch, which will give you double the amount of resources, but not double the amount of loot. This is going to be great for stuff like chins, antelopes, dashing kebets, moonlight moths, herby, maybe even the new crabs that are coming out with the new hunter method. I would turn this off though when I'm doing things that are purely for XP, stuff like red salamanders, just to save on the charges. I'm pretty excited for both the horn and the feathers because this is an example of using PVM to buff and enhance skilling. We've seen how resources thrown on boss tables have really negatively affected skilling over time, and by introducing enhancers instead of resource drops, we've found ways of making skilling a little bit more viable in the future. Now, we do need to keep an eye and make sure that they're executed properly. Like Abyssal Worms, in my opinion, were done very well, and I think that the Doom should have dropped Abyssal Worms as well, for example. But then we got another example of Shark Lure, which is very much the same thing but poorly implemented, and they haven't addressed yet. So we'll have to make sure that these are balanced properly, and hopefully the feedback gets to them and we don't sit on an item that feels bad to get for a long period of time. In addition to the regular Gryphons, you're also going to have a Slayer boss, the Shellbane Gryphon. This is also assigned by the same masters, of course, and has the same Slayer requirement, which is probably the biggest thing here. It only requires 51 Slayer to be able to access this boss. That is remarkably low when you're looking at the Slayer bosses. They're typically higher level. The lowest previous Slayer boss would be Grotesque Guardians at 75 Slayer, followed by Sire at 85 Slayer. That is massively far away. So this is great because we'll have access to the boss in the pretty early mid game, I would say. And for one, that's going to be great for players learning how to boss. This is going to be one of the first bosses they potentially do. It's going to make the Slayer grind feel a lot better as well because you're probably going to get some decent XP from doing this boss, and it's going to be fun to do. And of course, it's got a pretty meta-defining drop associated with it. The unique drop that people are going to be going for here is the Gleaming Rapier. This is a 5-tick one-handed weapon that requires 65 attack to wield. So this is effectively the stab version of the zombie axe, and the zombie axe is an incredibly powerful mid-game option that is very accessible. So when you combine having that slash weapon along with this stab weapon, you're definitely rounding out your kit quite well. So this is going to be great to bring to something like Moons of Peril because it's going to be your best option likely to use on the Eclipse boss because he's weak to stab. And if you go to Moons of Peril and you get yourself a pair of the dual Macaweedles, oh my goodness, between this rapier, the zombie axe, and those crush weapons, you have all 3 styles sorted out for melee for quite a while. And the big use case that you're going to use for this is when you go to TOA and you don't have a Fang yet, this is going to be a dominant option and a very accessible option for a lot of players. Aquanites are the next creature to talk about. They require 86 Slayer to be able to do, as well as 73 Sailing to access the island, which are pretty high requirements, and you're going to get them through Neve and Duradel. They do have high stats naturally, but you can take down their advantage during the fight as well. They are located in multi, but they are not cannonable, so we'll have to see exactly if they're barrageable or maybe potentially use a Venator bow on them, but it's hard to say exactly until we know. Plus their unique mechanic, if it's really slow to deal with, that will also factor into how great of a task they are. But just based on the fact that they're in multi, they're probably going to be decent when it comes to using them for leveling. And you know, the fact that they're 86 Slayer as well means that when you get a superior from them, you actually have a decent chance at getting like an imbued heart or something. It's obviously not as great as Araxites or Smokes, and if you're doing the meta farming guide for the heart, you're not going to do these at all. But if you're kind of leveling Slayer, I don't see why you wouldn't potentially unlock these, provided they're not super annoying or super tanky or anything like that. They're probably going to be a net positive for most people grinding out Slayer. In terms of unique drops, the one unique drop we have here is the Aquanite Tendant, which you're going to combine with a Mithril Bar to make the Aquanite Hopper, which is the funniest looking tape gun, laser gun thing ever. I love the way it looks. I don't know why it looks like that, but it comes with 12 ranged accuracy and 1 ranged strength, so very little in terms of stats, but it does have a unique effect, which is it provides a 10% chance for crossbows to fire twice, which is really good just at that. But then it also mentions that the second bolt has 67% reduced accuracy, damage, and enhanced bolt activation chance. On top of that, only 1 enhanced bolt can happen per attack anyway, so it's actually even less than that when you factor that in. So overall, when you factor in that effect as a whole, it's not a huge DPS increase, definitely. However, it can be a decent stepping stone to something like a Dragonfire Ward or a Twisted Buckler, which is going to be better in pretty much all categories. So let's say you're an Iron Man and you've done, you know, Custodian Stalkers and you got yourself the Antler Guard. You're going to get that way earlier because this is 86 Slayer and the Antler Guard's much lower. But this could be a decent option for you to get once you do reach 86 Slayer as an upgrade when you're using specifically a crossbow, or you're not taking advantage of the Tribrid potential of the Antler Guard or the prayer bonus of the Antler Guard. Overall, I expect the Hopper to sit between the Antler Guard / Odium Ward and Dragonfire Ward / Twisted Buckler when using a crossbow specifically. One important note here, in my last sailing video, we talked about the new Herblore primaries, the Frags and the Corals, which are basically the seeds and the herbs for the new potions we're making. We haven't seen any great sources for them yet other than thieving for the seeds. I am expecting them to drop from some of the creatures coming out with sailing, so keep that in mind when I'm talking about the different drops here. I'm only talking about the unique drops, but I'm expecting those to drop as well, and I do think that Aquanites are likely to be one of the better sources for them. Lava Strykewyrms are a new variant of a worm task you can do at level 62 Slayer, the same level as worms, as well as 60 sailing. This means that you can also get them from any of the masters that currently assign worms, so there's 4 masters that do that. They also have a superior that can dig underneath and try to surprise attack you, so you're actually going to move to dodge them, which is a little bit more unique than some of the other superior mechanics, definitely. But I think generally they're going to be a slower task because you are in single way combat like regular worms. So you'll likely only do these as long as you're happy to still do worms, but they do seem better overall because they do have a couple unique drops as well. For starters, their bones are a little bit better than worm bones, which isn't a great big deal, but it is nice to have. But the big drop here is going to be the dragon sheets. So we knew that these would be coming from PVM and whatnot, but we didn't know exactly where, and this is the first confirmed source of them. These sheets are going to be extremely important for upgrading your boat to its full potential, as well as its facilities. So I expect these monsters to be fairly profitable because people are going to want these dragon sheets for sure. And given that it takes 25 dragon sheets to be able to make one large keel part, I suspect it'll be less about getting one rare dragon sheet from them as a drop and more about getting a sustained amount of them at an uncommon rate. Also to note, we are getting dragon cannonballs, but we don't actually smith those, so dragon sheets aren't going to be used for that, and we'll still have to see exactly how we're going to get dragon cannonballs in the future. Strykewyrms are also going to have an elemental weakness, which could make mage viable on them, but we'll talk about that in just a minute with this next creature. And that next creature is the Frost Dragon. These will require level 1 Slayer, but they'll also need level 87 sailing to be able to access the island. So probably on release the highest requirement to get, because people have Slayer levels, people don't have sailing levels. They are a new task that are going to be assigned by Neve and Duradel. Unfortunately, they are currently auto-unlocked from what I can see here, so it is going to be a slight nerf to certain Slayer methods like hunting for Zuck tasks or max XP methods or imbued heart farming. So I wish they were actually an unlock instead, but they are very low weight. So we'll see if that changes on release. You could technically delay 87 sailing so you don't get this task and get the other stuff done first. They are a classic dragon that you can do with stab, range, fire spells, or Dragonbane. Dragons are typically 50% elemental weakness, but given that these are frost or ice based, I do think that there's a chance they could have a higher weakness like some of the other icy creatures we see, so we'll have to see exactly what their weakness is and how powerful mage can be. In terms of unique drops, they have two. The first one is the Frost Dragon Bones. Unlike the Strykewyrm Bones, these are actually a pretty significant upgrade. They give 100 prayer XP when buried, so this puts them in between Lava Dragon Bones and Hydra Bones. That being said, this isn't going to be something that low-level accounts can really take advantage of, because you're going to need 87 sailing to be able to get to them. So unless you're a new account that rushes that, it's going to be a lot easier for you to do something like, you know, lava dragons or even just regular dragons. So that's something to keep in mind, but they're still really good bones when you do have access to them. And once again, these guys also drop dragon sheets, which you'll use for shipbuilding. And I do expect them to be a better source from frost dragons versus strykewyrms, given the fact that you need a much higher sailing requirement to do frost dragons. Something to note for both frost dragons and strykewyrms is that they are also both simultaneously weak to elemental weakness as well as Dragonbane weaponry. This means that something like a Dragon Hunter wand could be a great option for many players, especially around the mid game, because you're getting both the elemental weakness and Dragonbane effect, and it was recently buffed. So consider picking that up if you don't have one already. Those are all the new creatures coming out with the release of Sailing, but I do have a couple important points to make. First thing is that all these creatures fall under the wide spectrum of the mid game, and as an end game player who is pretty excited for Sailing, I'm a little bit disappointed that nothing here is end game focused. So we have no new Slayer monsters or bosses that are going to be end game when you reach 90 plus Sailing. That's pretty disappointing for me if that's true, and the only thing really end game coming from Sailing so far are a couple new foods that are going to replace some of the other foods and maybe a couple potions. So I'm hoping that there's a couple other surprises out there that will appease the end game players who are probably the most critical about the Sailing update. So it feels like they should have something out on release. I don't know, maybe they're expecting to create those things after launch since people will need time to get the high sailing, but it's nice to have something to shoot towards, which I don't know if I really have right now. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is bank space. Now, I've seen a lot of comments about this on my videos. We are getting more bank space. It's been confirmed. And in this blog post, we saw that we're getting 100 new spaces on launch, as well as the ability to purchase up to 90 more from the current upgrade slots we have. So obviously to get 90 more is going to be very expensive, but overall you have 190 potential additional slots. That's everything I wanted to cover with Sailing. If you want to see how all the other skills are affected by Sailing, you could check out my last video. Consider subscribing to the channel if you found this helpful. I do weekly content, and thank you for watching.